Good evening, good afternoon, everyone, every place on the world. Welcome to the exhibition debate for the UDDC event. We are so proud of the teams. We are so proud of all the number of teams and youths and countries and continents are participating on this event. And we have now the exhibition debate with teams from every part of the world. On first time, we have on the first government Chile team with Matthias and Mr. Cesar. On the first opposition, we
Hello
have
there.
the Indian team with Kisitic and with Thain. Welcome. On the second government, we have the Nigeria team with Victor Bison, and now is coming back, but he have little had a little problem of connection with Isaac Francis too. And finally, in the second opposition, we have the South African team with Marilyn and Umar of the organization team is inside with us. So we are all ready to start, and we say hello to our youth Shannon from South Africa too. Shannon, if you can open the microphone and tell us the motion of this debate.
Sure. The motion picked for the exhibition debates is this house regrets borders. This house regrets borders.
This house regrets borders. Shannon?
Yep.
This house regrets borders. I am writing on the chat. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we have the motion. 15 minutes to the teams. You can go out of the video call and come back then to prepare. And we see you at 52, 17:52.
Okay, everybody, that's time for prep session. So if you're not the Prime Minister, can you please put your mics off? I can still hear a lot of rumbling.
Can you hear me? Should I start right away or
We can hear you.
The motion of the debate was this house regrets borders. We call to the first government, first minister, to make your speech.
okay? I will start in three, two, one, go. Panel, the question of this debate is: in which world do people live better? This question is directly associated to the next question. We believe that the matter of this debate is then the team that's going to win this debate is the one that proves that in their side of the house they have better chances for achieving peace. First, how do we think a world without borders look like? What's the counterfactual that we're going to present from opening government? We believe that the counterfactual in how the world looks without borders is a world where we live in our natural state. So what's a natural state? And first we have to introduce this idea that borders of it are a limitation created by men. They're not natural. We're not born with borders. They're something that was imposed by men many years ago. So we believe that in a world without borders, what we'll have is a world where we all are citizens of the world, right? We have no nations. We all are humans, and we all are citizens of the world, like in the movie Coco, right? Ernesto de la Cruz. We're all are citizens of the world. Why do we believe this is possible? Just directly associated with why what I already mentioned, right? Because it's the natural state. Because people are not born with borders; they were an invention. Okay, so now some characterization. What are borders, and how do they work? We believe that borders have been one of the main reasons why there's so many problems around the world. For example, because of borders, we have narratives of competition between the countries. Because of borders, we have constant war uh, in regard of resources. Because of borders, we believe that we are the we own we're the owners of some territory as a nation. Because of borders, we have nationalist and mostly racist narratives that have been really bad all around the world. So with all that in mind, we're going to start presenting our arguments here. First,
Clarification.
yeah,
Uh,
same.
if the if there are no borders, will there be a uniform international law across every single land?
Yes, we believe that with no borders, what we will have, it's like a world government with different like different mini governments from on different territories, but we will have only one world law. We believe that that's extremely important to clarify. So thank you, Sane. Okay, so people, we believe, and this is the first argument, that people will live according to their life projects. Why? Because in the world of opposition, where we have borders, you are conditioned to be or to strive to be in a certain way that not necessarily is something that you want. Because of borders, immediately it's the reason that people, for example, cannot live according to the life project, because when you are born in some country or some region, you believe that you have to stay there for the rest of your life, or you in the best case that we can have on opposition, you will have, for example, uh, immigration, which is always bad for vulnerable people when they try to migrate to other countries. They're not always well accepted. They're not always received in a really kind way. So we believe that it's really important to know that in a world without borders, people could live according to their life projects. And why we believe that this is so important, because um, in a world with people live with no borders, finally what you have is people moving all around the world according to what do they want to do, really. So for example, if in the territory that now it's occupied by a country named Chile, for example, you can play, I don't know, soccer, for example, and if you live in another part of the world, you can just travel and you can develop there without having any restrictions, without having any limitations. So we believe that you have more freedom in order to achieve the different abilities or the different life projects that you want to do. We believe that in the comparative, this looks on a position side really badly, for a really simple reason, because with borders you are much more limited. So a second argument is here we're going to prove that immigration in our world would be a matter of economics, but not about a matter of nation. What's the problem here? Let's explain how immigration works in a world with borders. In a world with borders, you necessarily have to have different public policies that can permit you to, as governments, to control their borders, right? To allow only some people to enter, not many people. We also have this distinction of regular immigrants and illegal immigrants. We believe that that's extremely harmful for a simple reason, because if you ask the next question, you'll have a really terrifying answer. Do European people complain about, uh, for example, American immigrants? Not really, right? They don't complain about them because they don't see them, or they don't view them as less than them, for example. But if us, Caesar and I, would try to go to Europe as Latin Americans, will probably be much more discriminated, because the reason that's behind nationalism and racism, it's all about discriminating not only people that come from outside, but mostly people that are more vulnerable or that are associated with poverty. We believe that that's extremely important. And how does this change in our side of the house? We believe that in our side of the house, we'll still have immigration, but it will be based on economics, right? Like we will not have the rhetoric or the argument from different racist people to say, no, I don't want you to enter my territory because you are from Latin America, because you're Chilean. What we will have, it's no, you cannot enter our country because of economic reasons. So we believe that it's a disincentive to all racist and harmful things that have happened all over the world. For all these reasons, we believe that we're going to take this debate from opening government. Very proud to propose.
Can you hear me? Can you just put in the chat if you can hear me? Cool. Just give me 10 seconds to arrange my notes.
Yeah, you can go.
I'm also keeping time on my end, so just both sides. Okay, cool. Panel understand this. Metric of this debate is which side is more likely to further the cause of humanity, right? And on what side humanity prosper, and that is something which, to an extent, I agree with OG, right? But the problem with OG is They said which side will actually eventually attain peace. I have a simple problem with that, the simply being that neither side, neither opposition nor government can prove that they are going to achieve peace in the first place. All we can do is show you that our trade-off is significantly better and their side is going to cause more harm than good. Second rebuttal. They came and spoke about how natural state is when you're born with borders without like that's just pure lie, right? Most like as far as time goes, even when the civilizations even like started like the Indus Valley and shit like that, at that point borders did exist. Third rebuttal. They came and spoke to you about how borders cause wars and problems like that, right? I'm going to analyze and prove to you why that is false and why at that point they automatically fall out of this debate. But last targeted rebuttal I'll do is that they came and spoke about how people are forced to stay at one place. Firstly, that is a grave lie, and at that point, and even on their side, they cannot prove how people are just going to move, right? Because traveling more than racism, at that point, even of money comes into picture, right? I'm from India, I just can't buy a flight ticket to North America because I don't have $7,000 to spare, right? They haven't really tackled that. They haven't really shown us a mechanism at that point. Lastly, we came and spoke about how understand racism is not just because of country, racism happens because of religion and color. I am a brown Muslim. At that point, I will still remain brown Muslim, right? Even if I go to United States, I will remain a brown Muslim and I will still be targeted simply based on my color and religion, and racism is not going to simply just vanish like how they try to like tell us, right? Lastly, the clarification about how unified international laws exist and then there will be different territories still, I think that is a very contradictory claim to make in the first place, but I will tell you why that falls flat on their side as well. Coming to why on our positive matter, right? Firstly, let's understand why borders are created, right? Why nations are created in the first place, right? The simple reason behind this is to retain cultural identity, right? We at side opening opposition believe that not everyone can live together, right? Simply because
Why is
there are
that?
geographic I'm not taking points now. Simply because there are different sort of geographical restrictions, there's different sort of cultural restrictions. Not everyone can necessarily just live together. Like simple examples in India and Pakistan, but necessarily like we are so close to each other, but just because of cultural differences, we cannot live together. Or things like Catalonia and Spain. But this is something that Kshitij will come and deal with his, right? Thirdly, we believe the nations are created is simply because to allow the recognition of culture, right? We believe like when you are part of this country, you are sort of allowing your culture to be recognized, right? Like I'm from India, I like curry. It allows me to recognize my culture, the fact that I like this particular cuisine and shit like that. And I think that is something extremely crucial which borders bring. Second, we believe a lot of discrimination will exist, right, on their side of the house, and to an extent even on our side of the house. But the trade-off on our side is better, simply because when there are borders, it sort of allows this safe space, right? Now, taking the whole example of me being a brown Muslim, it allows me to stay in my vicinity where I am accepted, where I am sort of okay, like it is okay to be brown. I'm not going to be simply discriminated by something which I cannot necessarily control, right? And that is something they need to engage on their side and show us how on the comparative they're suddenly going to get rid of color or religion or something which is not national basis religion which exists, right? Secondly, it allows people to feel a part of something bigger than themselves, right? Now, what do nations do? At this point, when I go out for touring, go out for traveling, at that point, it allows me to have this sense of security that India will look after me, right? At that point, like the first thing you step out of the country, you get a text from the embassy saying that here is the embassy, here is the number for it. In case something happens, you can call them, they will look after you, right? That's something which we believe happens solely on our side, and that is an exclusive benefit. Like even though like pragmatically whether or not we use the embassies is not the point, the sense of feeling, right? That sort of sense of like this cushion at the back of my head saying that I am going to be free, I am going to like be safe, my country will look after me, something that only we can propose. Secondly, we believe there will be like a sense of nationalism at that point. I believe it sort of gives me purpose, sort of gives me
Okay.
like hope. I'm not taking opening, I'll take closing later because you guys are next. It sort of allows me to get this feeling that I am a part of something bigger than themselves. It sort of gives, it's like a driving factor. Like at that point, like the reason why I'm debating right now is so that I eventually go to world, so that I eventually represent India. It's a sort of driving factor, which is also something we at opening solely present to you. Next, we tell you that it's going to prevent exploitation, right? At this point, the reason why borders exist is so that to prevent, you can't just waltz into places, right? Taking the example of British, right? At that point, the reason why British could actually just get in and do whatever they want, because at that time there were no fixed boundaries, right? At this point, the boundaries, like these borders exist. At that point, we believe that it's going to help us actually keep this in check, right? At this point, it prevents British from coming into India and exploiting their spices. It allows people like the North American coming into Africa and sort of exploiting their labor or sort of anything, right? It could be as simple as exploiting oil, labor, and things like that. We believe this sort of protection comes only when you have borders, right? At this point, I will take closing really quick. Closing out POS. I guess you are not taking POS. You're not giving me a POS. It's cool. Okay. Lastly, we believe now the whole concept of an international unified law, right? We believe that that is an inherently problematic proposition to make, right? Understand something, why are laws created of different countries, right? Because a lot of laws are inherently region specific simply because they allow they allow the people, like they allow it allows the law to cater to the people. Like for example, like in the Middle East, right, you have very lenient oil laws. It allows people to actually have more laws, like have more oil refineries and have more oil digging, and simply because they have that oil, and at that point the trade-off for the Middle East is the money, right? But countries like India, countries like USA cannot survive with those similar laws simply because at that point we will sort of degrade our environment. We won't necessarily have that sort of resources in the future, right? We believe when there is a unified law, it sort of gets rid of all these things, right? Things like liquor ban and shit like that, right? And this is something which is going to affect the social mentality also, right? Understand this: in the Middle East, liquor and pork is banned. Why is that so? It is a Muslim area, right? It is a Muslim country, it is a Muslim thing, and Muslims are a minority, right, globally. At that point you understand this, that if I make an international law and if I don't cater to these people by giving them their specific law which can only be achieved through borders, at that point we believe it is going to be inherently problematic, simply because at that point it's not going to, like, it's going to hurt the religious sentiment, right? We don't think that is a necessarily trade-off at that point, right? Minorities globally will sort of be screwed over, right? Taking like the same example, at that point let's say you do have a unified law which is inclusive to everyone, right? I mean, which is practically impossible unless they give us a model how. But even though if they give us a model, the problem with that be because the fact that there are different region specific growths, right? Like people in Russia do require a lot of liquor because of the cold and things like that. At that point you can't necessarily have a unified law which is going to cater to everything. Lastly, we believe it's going to lead to a lot of colonization, but that is something Kshitij will come and address. And for all those reasons, extremely confident we take the debate as far as the opening half is concerned.
Very good. I'm going to make an audio test. Do you listen? Do you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes.
hear you.
Yes. Some before I start, some clarifications. My English is awful, so I expect you to apologize if you don't understand me very well. We are really proud and happy to share with you, with Matthias, this experience. This is our first tournament. So thank you. Thank you for your company. There is a mic open. Yeah. Could you close your mic? Hello? I have a mic that is open. Can you close it? I think it's Victor. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to start in 3, 2, 1, go. First, we have to take care of the rebuttal and critics that are the opposition has given to us. First, they are trying to build a scarecrow fallacy on our burden of proof. They say we have the burden of proof of achieving peace. That is not true. What Matthias said is in which world we can live better. That is a relationship, just has a relation with in which world we have better chances for peace. This is important because we believe that when you suppress the element of borders, you eliminate an element associated with war. And we believe that a world without with less chances of war is a world with better chances of peace. And that is the burden of proof. So we like that opposition build their case around to it. And second of all, they say that even in our natural state, it wouldn't occur borders. We believe that they are referring to the regulation of property. We believe that property is going to still exist in our world and it's going to be regulated in terms of where
people have their lands. That is not going to be problematic, but you can't associate property with borders in this point, because we believe that they are similar, different things. Second of all, they say, well, you cannot always gonna be able to cross borders, because if I live in India, I don't have the money to go to the US. We believe this is a really poor rebuttal, because let's see what you can. In the most cases, or at least in our world, if you don't have the money to buy a ticket, you have the possibility to cross borders. You have the possibility to go to the country that's near to you, that offers you, or the territory, not country, the territory that offers you more chances of a better living. It happens, for example, with Guatemala and the USA, Mexico and the USA. It happens here in Chile when we receive people from Peru, or people from Venezuela, or people from Bolivia, that they are close to us, because they see sometimes that resources or economical things are better in here. And this is important, because in our world that is possible, in your world it doesn't. And in both worlds, if you don't have money for a ticket, you can't do that. So I believe that's a point that is for us. Again, they say, well, I'm going to be a brown Muslim everywhere, and I'm going to be discriminated for that. Yeah, but you have to go before that. You have to understand that the people that looks, for example, brown Muslims as weird elements, are because they are considered unnatural for the culture of a country because of borders. Borders are a conceptual element that tells you this is normal in here, this is not. But when you change that narrative and you say we're one world with a lot of religion, we're one nation with a lot of religions, the reaction is different. You're not a brown Muslim, and you're not weird, and you're not excluded because you're from another country. Yeah, you're going to be a brown Muslim, and if they are going to apply that, well, at least they are going to apply racism based on matter of religion, but not in matter of nation. We believe that meanwhile, we have less chances of discrimination is better. So at least in our world, there's going to be one less chance of discrimination against you, because there are going to be people that is not going to have problem that you were a brown Muslim, but yes, it's going to be people that dislikes Canada, that dislikes India, that dislikes any nationality as in a specific, and we say that in our world, at least we eliminate that chance. Boy for Marilyn. No?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you
Come
hear
on.
me? Yes, I wanted to ask that what do you mean when you say that there will be less chances of discrimination when people are still divided on race and gender and a lot of things, including social status?
Thank you. I understand the point. Yeah, if you look at the group of chances of discrimination, we believe that they are going to be existed in both worlds. The thing is that when you suppress one that is important, discrimination for nationality, at least you have one more chance, one less chance for discrimination. And that's the point that we are answering to it. And when they say that with borders, without borders, British could commit that abuse, well, that is precisely the problem. British committed abuse because of borders, because they believed that their government, their country was better than others. In here, there's going to be a worldwide regulation. British wouldn't be able to do that because of regulations about the world. And we believe that it's given in our world, not given in your world. And we believe that British wouldn't have acted like that if there would have been a world government that tells them, no, you cannot exploit India. No, you cannot exploit your colonies. Why? Because there are no freaking colonies in our world. So I think that goes off. In the meantime, we can say that one government doesn't mean we can have a special regulations. Even countries inside there make exceptions in their law, and they have a special regulations. So yes, we could have a special regulation or exceptions in which part of the world in our world government. So we believe that is not insufficient rebuttal. We believe, and this is the heart of the argument that we're proposing, that distribution of resources in our world is a matter of public policy, not force, not strength. If it's a thing about public policy, and for it, there's a thing for democracy, democratic decisions, not strength, not force. That's why we say we have a best chance for peace. We have a best chance for peace because we're not going to solve our disagreements about resources based on the strength of a nation. We're going to decide them with policy, with politics, and democracy. I'm very proud to propose.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Can you just type yes in the chat box? Oh, great, great. Thank you so much. Just give me like 10 to 15 seconds and I will start. I'll be keeping my own time, so it's not a worry. Panel, let me just start my speech by just talking to you about what the problems we have with side government's case, right? Side government's case is simply about reducing discrimination, right? That's a major constructive in their case. Let me tell you why discrimination will not be reduced, right? Understand the concepts of why countries were created, right? Countries were created to accept cultural differences that exist between people living in different lands, and that kind of cultural difference will exist with or without the existence of borders. A person who's born and brought up in America is not going to be the same as a person who's born and brought up in India, and these cultural differences will always exist and will continue to exist, right? That's the entire essence of racism, right? Where white Christians in America say that black people, that African Americans deserve that don't deserve to get proper pay for their jobs simply because they are a different color, right? That color difference will still exist. The fact that you're born in Africa, the fact that your descendants is from Africa, or the fact that I am from India, I will still face that kind of a discrimination simply because there is a difference in culture that exists, simply because I am born and brought up in, and the way that I talk and the way that I behave are far more different things, right? They understand that that's the logic of countries, right? So countries, whether we like it or not, will always exist because countries are created upon cultural differences that exist between different lands, right? Let me tell you one more rebuttal of their case, like one more essential problem that we have with their case, right? Their essential case ka problem is that people sitting in America now can outsource their labor to people sitting in India or other developing countries and make sure that that happens legally and without any checks and balances. That is an inherent problem that we have, right? Simply because you have one law that governs the entire land, and the law would be that you can employ people from your particular you can employ people from the world, right? Simply because you can, and people living in lower economic stratas of the world can provide cheap labor, right? That's when exploitation increases, right? Why we tell you that exploitation on our side is far more lesser is simply because there's an inherent checks and balances that comes with the different law processes that exist in this part of the country, right? So India, which is a developing country, will have far more different labor laws than America will, right? Labor laws that protect them from exploitation from other countries, right? Where America can just say that, listen, these are the labor laws that exist, and that we're going to work you for like $10 a day, and we're going to work you for the whole day, right? That kind of oppression will exist only on this side, only on their side of the house, right? It doesn't exist on our side of the house simply because you have countries that protect you and make sure that you're not that your rights aren't violated simply because you have a particular safe space that exists within your country and the cultural identity that exists within you. Before that, please, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Good name, by the way.
Thank you. Panel, this is a scarecrow fallacy. That is not what we are saying. We are saying that the narratives are going to change. We're not going to end discrimination. We said that in both of our discourses. We said that the narrative is changed and resources.
I got your point. I got your point. understand that your point basically says that people are now going to realize that you're from the same country, right? However, you don't understand that the cultural differences will still exist, and those cultural differences will continue to exist, and that's why racism exists. Racism doesn't exist because I'm from India. Racism exists because I am from India, and the way that I talk is an Indian way to talk, right? So whether you characterize it as like India or a world government, those cultural differences will still exist. It's the same example of Catalonia and Spain, right? Catalonia existed within Spain, and they being so close to each other should have the same cultures that existed, right? But there are different nuances that exist, but that there are different nuances of culture that exist within Catalonia itself, which is why they created their own country to make sure that their rights are protected and not squashed over by the majority that exists, right? This is the on our side of the house, an individual or a group of individuals is far better off simply because there is a recognition of their cultural differences, because you can assert your identity as an Indian and be proud of it, right? Understand that nationalism doesn't mean that racism always plays into this nationalism, right? Racism comes from like people who are bad, not people who are nationalists, right? Nationalistic identity means that you want to make sure that the people who live around you are far more better to do in life than are far more better to live, and you'll work for that common good, right? You'll work for the common good, for the betterment of your country, which is what literally everybody has lived off. Now, coming back to the point where exploitation will still exist is simply because industrialization or liberalization occurred far quicker in America, right? So a country that has like can outsource labor and pay for this labor will, and India provides it a market, make sure that this cycle or this echo chamber exists where people I'll not take any more POIs, okay, except if closing wants to engage, all right? And this kind of echo chamber will exist where America, or that region of this world which is America, which we call it now, will always have the higher or the more richer side of the public, that is the 1% of the world, and India, which is a developing country, will have the lower side of the economic population, simply because there's a larger population that exists within that country, and because it's far more easy to exploit them, because they provide cheaper labor, because they'll work for pretty much $10 a day, where people who born and brought up with a higher standard will not work for the same amount, right? That's the kind of inherent problem that we have with Europe, right? Now, coming to the point of checks and balances, right? Understand, when there were no countries and the entire world existed on its own, which they talk about the natural state, which comes out in the PM speech. Understand that that's when invasions occurred more, right? That's when invasions started happening, where the Britishers entered India and there were no regulatory checks and mechanisms that existed, which exist in current status quo, right? When these checks and mechanisms don't exist, people can just waltz in and go anywhere that they want, and like even though there are laws against it, you can't really stop them, right? Because you're not protecting a smaller community. And the case that side opening government tries to present it is inherently knifing themselves, right? I'll tell you why this happens. They talk about creating a world government and then creating sub governments, okay, which will exist on their own. That's essentially creating borders, right? Because laws will always be specific for a particular area, right? As they should be, which should lie on our side of the house. Why law should be specific for a particular region is because people are born and brought up in a different way, and different laws exist simply because, like the same example that Zain brings up, said that the Middle East has a far more easier laws on commercializing oil, is simply because it's a natural resource there, and their economy is driven from that, right? So you have better ways to facilitate that rather than creating a uniform economic law that exists to make sure that all countries are incorporated, right? Understand that the moment you do this and the moment you create separate laws, the case that they present is essentially accepting that borders exist, essentially existing that cultural identities, the difference of cultural identities exist, and that people are far more better off in their safe spaces simply because this is the kind of place that you want to be in. If I face racism in America or in Europe, I have a backing to fall upon, right? I have India to fall upon, where I can just come back and live here and my country will accept me and provide me shelter, right? That's the kind of moral obligation that a country or a state has upon its people, right? Simply because these people are the people who have lived and been born and brought up from here. These are the people who will be living here, and thus these are people that we need to provide for. Thus we give you better constructors on our side of the house, where we tell you that cultural identities are far more accepted by people all across the world, and also that cultural identities are existed, people are far more better off. Industrialization, oh, okay, I'm sorry, time's up.
We finished. Thank you. Second of the opposition, and we are waiting the second or the third of the government, the close government. Mm, okay, Victor is having little connection problems. We are waiting. Okay, just wait a little seconds. Okay, they are having a little problem connection. Yes, it's hard to do. Okay, they are telling me they are having little connection problems. We are waiting to see if they can come. Only a little patient. This is so important for the teams in the tournament. Always control the internet if you can. Okay. Victor, are you here? Victor? Victor, release the microphone, please. Ah, you are... Okay. Victor? Yes, are you if you are speaking, we don't listen you. If you are speaking, we don't listen you. Release the microphone, please. Victor? Go to settings, release the microphone, please. Yes, it is. Okay. Continue.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, network is really bad. Please, I'm really, really sorry for this. I'm really,
Don't
really sorry.
worry. Don't worry.
Okay, can I start now?
When you want.
Okay, I'm starting immediately. So, I'm starting at count of 3, 2, 1, 0. So, panel on government or closing government, as the case may be, we think that borders or the existence of minorities are on the existence of borders, on the existence of global divisions. The reasons why Chinese feel they're the bigger race in the world or is because of the existence of borders. The reasons why Germans feel that the German race is the better race against when compared to the Jews is because of the existence of borders. The existence of borders is an arbitrary construct, and we think that it has caused the world more damage. Today's debate on why we regret this motion is simply on in retrospect of what we face as a result of the existence of these borders. Today's debate is not futuristic. It is because we think that the existence of these divides in the world has caused the world more harms than potential good. We think that if these borders didn't exist, the world would have been better off. And that is what today's debate is all about. Today's debate is in retrospect, and we do not want to have like pragmatic arguments that we've had from opposition. I've engaged opposition in their best case when they talked about how cultural identities is retained with the existence of borders. Secondly, they also talked about how discrimination exists when with the existence, with the existence of borders. Until they talked about how exploitation of minorities exists, and we think that these three are the mere existence of the fact that people who are minorities exist in the world. We think a borderless world is a world that doesn't have minorities, and we prioritize that kind of world that doesn't have minorities over the world that has minorities. Over the while, we understand that blacks, for instance, when compared to the white, are considered as minorities in the world. That existence of minorities is the fact that people who are white feel that they're better off than blacks. That kind of division is one that we think that is unhealthy for the world, and we do not prioritize. What today's debate tries to investigate is ultimately what is a system that would have given the world a better utility than what we have today. We think that the world or a society that doesn't have borders would have been more important or more beneficial to the world that we have today. We think that borders doesn't just exclusively talk about geographic borders. We also understand that borders could go towards class divides, racial divides, racism, xenophobic attacks like we have in South Africa and the rest. Anything that tries to create superiority and create people as majority and other people as minorities is what we think that is very, very not like something that doesn't give the world better utility. And that has been what the world has been suffering. We understand that the greatest threat of global divisions exists when one part of the world prioritizes itself over the other. The existence of marginalization of some parts of the world is because some sections of the world consider themselves as people that are bad. These are existence over the years, and we think that that is not in the interest of the world. When we have a world where there are no borders, we have people expressing themselves without the limitations that exist. We understand that there are positions that cannot be gotten by certain people that are considered minorities in the world. There are people that cannot get certain offices in the world. We have the United Nations, for instance. We have the 5 world powers there that must make a decision. We understand that this exists because there are 5 people who own the nuclear weapons in the world, and they're like the big boys of the world. We regret the fact that this happens because most of these 5 world powers use that to oppress other people because they have so much power. We regret the existence of borders because we understand that that is the bedrock of every other form, every other thing that minorities suffer in the world. Minorities over the years have been victimized. Minorities over the years have been oppressed, and we think that without the existence of borders, they won't have anything like minorities in the world. What happens when they exist when borders work? When borders work, minorities have to be loyal to the whims and caprices of the majority blocks for them to have some form of relevance.
Are you taking a POS?
Okay, our team from Nigeria is having little connection problems. We have the time stopped. And the thing we were saying about is for the teams, please try to have the best connection in the debates. It's very important. Care these details before start the debates of the event, and it's very important because it's always can happen, no? So revise your internet before of your days of your debates and control if you need something for this. We are waiting if he can come back. We are looking. So we are waiting like 1 minute. If he can't come back in 1 minute, he can. Huh? Well, we are looking. The team can't is not coming back. So we are trying to continue the debate with the close opposition. The last 10 seconds, looking if they come back, but it's not. But we understand. We can understand that internet can't fail in the different parts of the world. The unique is we have to continue because our India team have is very late there now.
Can I start speaking?
Yeah, we finished the speech from the third of government, and we continue with the close opposition, third of opposition at your first word, but the unique is the person have to listen you is not now here.
So am I going to do my whip speech or can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. The unique thing is the rival team have fails on the internet and they are not here.
Okay, let me start.
They don't receive the message. So go and where we can go, where we can arrive. No, close opposition, third of the opposition at your first word.
3, 2, 1, start. Borders create order. In different types of the world, we think that division is something that we need to acknowledge actually exists, and it creates proper order for people to live in a very safe and secure society, to live in a society where they are protected. Within this debate, I am going to give you three arguments, right? A point on sovereignty and a point on separate economies, and then I'm going to do a comparative between the benefits versus the detriments. The very first thing that we need to acknowledge within today's debate is that this debate is about us regretting something. So what criteria do we use when we regret something? We regret something when we see there's an inherent harm that is higher than the benefits that are provided. And I'm going to show you within my speech why we as side opposition don't think that this harm is that big, and we don't think that this harm is so harmful that it does not necessarily benefit is actually not as harmful as government make it seem, and that there are more benefits that outweigh the harms, right? So moving on to some rebuttal that I'll deal with, right? Let me touch on a bit on what the Star Wars team actually came to give us within this debate, right? So they tell you that they want to create a world where it is a natural state where people live in peace and harmony. We tell you that this world actually already exists, because we think that this world cannot exist for the main reason that in a natural state, there is always one part of groups of people that are going to want to be more supreme than others, that are going to want to create their own some form of leadership, and we are going to have more problems, and we're going to have more wars erupting rather than peace and harmony that we keep on striving for. And touching on a bit on what the previous speakers say, he was saying that racism was constructed by borders. We think that this is false, because social constructions such as racism, sexism, and all of those things are constructed by the way people live within society and how people have been raised within different cultures and traditions. We think that, we think that it's very harmful for you to just randomly say that racism is constructed by borders. No, racism exists with or without borders. So we tell you that it is better on our side because different states have ways of dealing with this type of, or this form of racism, right? Then moving on to another argument, right? He mentioned that a borderless world has no minorities. We tell you that's impossible for one reason only. Just because the world does not have borders, it doesn't mean men and women don't exist. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden everyone is of one race. It does not mean that specific things just randomly change. Homosexuals stop existing, or Christianity and religion are something that we have to ignore. We think that that point does not stand within this debate. He comes on to tell you again that borders are not only artificial but are also superficial. We actually concede to this point. We know that borders exist in different ways. Borders even exist through gender and race. Those are those type of borders that we cannot get rid of, right? Then moving on to what I want to speak about within this debate, right? The idea of sovereignty, right? This whole idea tells you that borders allow for independent governments, right? Why do we think that independent governments are so important? We think that independent governments are super important and are very important because they stand for what their people stand for. We tell that it becomes very difficult when we have a one state, or when we have a natural state where people cannot be able to voice out their opinions. We tell you that there's a reasons why there are different levels of government, and there's a reasons why there are different types of government. So it becomes more problematic when we see that a monarchy or an anarchy, all of those different types of government cannot come together to create one side of scene, right? Okay, I'll take one point of information from the light side of the force.
Thank you. Can we agree that in both worlds is going to be discrimination for racism, but only in your world is going to be discrimination for nationalism?
we actually need to concede to the fact that there are certain constructions of the world that we cannot solve completely. But we tell you that this is better solved in our world, right? A world where we have different states and different governments that care for their people. It becomes very problematic when you try to have a black person speaking up for the rights of people that are not of his state. We tell you that it becomes very problematic because you do not know the upbringing of that specific individual and you don't know what they stand for. So it becomes easier when it's in different states, right? So we feel that separate governments are the way to go because separate governments actually support their own people and separate government actually support the ideologies of the specific individuals raised in a certain manner, and they support their people and do what's best for their people. Within that world, we will love and support a world where people are divided, right? So we move on to the benefits versus detriments, right? This is a point that is very, very important in this debate because it's actually the ultimate comparative, right? To see which side actually best caters for a normal world, right? So opening government actually asks the question, in which world do people live better? We tell you that people live better in our world. How was that made possible? We tell you that we make unique policies possible within independent states that actually speak and stand for the right of specific people within specific countries. That becomes very difficult to be achieved when you are trying to make the world a one stand when we're already divided by continents and different waters and seas. It becomes so difficult for you to reach that same goal of policies that you cannot achieve, right? We tell you that the specific needs of people are actually met when we have different governments. The specific needs of people that really, really need them and the minorities that we speak so much of are actually brought out. We tell you that this is already being dealt with the idea of the United Nations, because they saw that it is quite impossible for you to have a world where we don't have borders, but it is possible for you to have universal laws. And that's something that we need to acknowledge within this debate. So let me go on to the harms, right? To show you that the harms of regretting borders, right? Like just like removing borders or borderless world. What does that happen? Like this is what it does. It creates a very easy access for wars to actually begin. It actually makes it very easy for wars to occur between specific countries. We tell you that it makes it very simple for people to just take up guns and decide to actually kill people. And that's something that we do not want, and that's something we do not support. And secondly, we tell you that it increases negative discourse within society. People's integration becomes very different, and their mindset becomes distorted. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, stand with the side that knows and stands for people that want to be heard. Thank you.
Time. Thank you. Thank you. Close opposition for your speech. We have one inconvenient we can't control. On democracy, Nigeria team extensions don't have internet. They lost the internet. So in these conditions, they can't come back to the debate, and we can't continue with the wipes because they can't participate. So the final intervention for Marilyn, we can do it. But it was a very good debate. On the part we can listen. We listened to all the cameras. We have material to make the deliberation, and yes, if the rest of the teams are agree to Obi-Wan make the wipe from the debate, from the government debate. Yeah, better now. Okay, well, we continue until the final. So
yeah, it's not going to be great, but at least the whip of the opposition can have some material to work on.
Yeah, thank you, Cesar, to make the intervention, and we can finish the debate. So thank you. Come on.
let me start the chronometer. I don't know how that is said, but one moment. Give me just 1 minute. Okay, in 3, 2, 1, 0. Well, let's start this government whip with the. Thank you. May the force be with you too, my friend. What we can say on this debate and why we can say government is winning for opposition. In the first place, I believe that first government gave a specific burden of proof that it's been ignored for opposition because when the first government tried to say that they acknowledge that the discrimination will still exist, that there will be problems that are present in both worlds, opposition has taken their best scenario. There, and that is problematic because we believe that they are not being comparative to what government is proposing. Government has been very clear in saying that when we suppress the conceptual element of borders, we suppress chances, more chances of war. Yes, we're not saying that it's not going to be war. We can't propose an ideal case in our best case scenario. What we're proposing is that with a world government is going to be a far better regulation because decision on resources are not going to be taken for strength or for force. It's going to be a matter of public policy, decisions, and democracy. That point has never been covered up to now. Yeah, nobody in the opposition has said something about it, and we believe that that is important because it's the core of part of the argumentation that says that is why we're going to have a world with better chances of peace. That is not being addressed because all the argumentation of opposition in opening and in closing has been about how the world is going to work without borders, but thinking in the world with borders. I mean, they have a misconception about this, and this is important. All of the facts, all of the flaws that they are proposing is because they watch the behavior of people with the notion of borders in a world that has no notion of borders. We believe that opposition whip needs to address this point if the closing opposition wants to have a better development of their case that they have had in opening. First. Second of all, the burden of proof was really clear from the beginning. Luke said it. This Obi-Wan said it too. We're not talking about achieving peace. We're not talking about ending discrimination. We're talking about mitigation. And that mitigation implies that we have less chances of fighting, that we have less chances of discrimination. But they have said all this time, there's still going to be war, there's still going to be discrimination. We're not saying that it's not going to be. We're saying that we need to mitigate reasons of mitigation. That is why the question that we presented to closing was really important. And it was really important. I'm going to take the point in a little, wait for it. And this is important because they can't answer that question and they avoid it because they know that in their world it's going to be discrimination for race and culture. In our world, it's going to be discrimination for race and culture. We agree on that point, but they have never taken on the fact that in their world, it's going to be discrimination for nation, for nationalism. There's going to be public policy on nationalism, and in our world, it's not going to happen in that way. And we have explained it why, and they haven't answered that crucial point. Let's go with shit. Let's go with shit. And I'm sorry, let's go with the point and then Marilyn. I do not listen to you because
I don't think he can say. I'll say the point from the first opposition on his behalf.
Yeah, great.
So far, your case has been completely castle in the air, but let's take your best case. Human tendency is xenophobia. Xenophobia will exist regardless of how humans behave, engage.
Yeah, I would like a mechanization about why human nature has xenophobia or on the DNA, but that is not hasn't happened. I'm not going to do that work for you. Let's go with Marilyn.
So I wanted to ask, how are you sure that nationalism is not something, because nationalism and tribalism are almost the same thing, because people are actually very proud of their tribe. So either way, discrimination still exists.
Yeah, because the discrimination will exist, as you said before, because of cultural reasons. We agree on that point, but with not nationalism, because nationalism is a product of borders. We addressed this point of the regulation of property that you also didn't address. So we're talking about this matter, and we believe that opposition hasn't taken that burden of proof that they had, and they haven't accomplished that. So to resume this, to close this, we believe we win as a government to all the opposition because of the arguments that extension gives, and but more on the health because of the arguments that opening government did. I'm sorry, closing government, because we put what was the heart of this debate, and they haven't addressed to it. So we have an opposition that is not being comparative because they haven't proved that the thing with borders, the nationalism is going to occur, because they say that tribalism is a matter of importance, but we answer that it's going to be regulated on the fact of property. And even if the tribalization discrimination occurs, it happens in both worlds. It happens because of cultural reasons, not of borders. And we believe that the fight for resources on the concept of borders is what has given us, unfortunately, a lot of causes of wars that we believe in our world is going to be regulated and it's going to be better. So you have the web of opposition. Let's see how they do it. Thank you for allowing this really, really bad English speaker a chance to make a web. Thank you.
And we finish the debate with the wipe of
Can
the
I start?
opposition. At your first word.
Can I start?
Yeah.
Okay, in 3, 2, 1, that's. Let me show you how Star Wars is won by any Princess Leia within this debate, because that's something that we need to acknowledge, that side government comes up with so many points and telling you how it'll be so much better for us to live in a world that is borderless. There's going to be less wars, there's going to be more peace, there's going to be less discrimination, and there's going to be shared property. Somehow people are going to come together, somehow people are still going to be in one agreement and have one form of governance, when democracy is not something that's ideal to all parts of the world. I wonder how they're going to make that happen. So let me deal with how this debate actually boiled down to, right? So there's something that we need to acknowledge, is that this debate was just a basic comparison between benefits versus detriments, something that we needed to highlight, very important, because when we regret something, we see that there is so much harms that are happening within it more than the benefits, right? So let me tell you what this whole debate actually went about. Let me deal with some rebuttals, right? So he tells you that we actually have competitions within countries, and I don't understand how this is bad, because I mean, this is necessary for the progression of humanity. If people want to progress in society, competition has to exist. It's something that we've seen, that progression through competition is something that happens even in the natural, even in the natural state of society. Like, let's take an analogy of like the animal kingdom, to be precise. So we tell you that competition for prey actually gets the whole system going. We tell you that that is the same narrative that actually works for human society. We tell you people are in competition to make a better society, and people compete to make it a more broad and acceptable society. So we tell you that separate currencies are something that we need, because riches of different countries are not going to be diluted by other countries. We tell you that specific countries work harder than other countries. Hence, it's so important for us to acknowledge the fact fact that these countries are working hard and these countries need to have that source of recognition, right? And then they tell you that in our current world where there are borders, people or immigrants are actually not well accepted into other countries. And I'm telling you that this is actually going to be lesser in it's actually happening lesser in our case, because either way, whether you're going to remove borders and put people in a borderless world, people are still not going to accept people of different nation like of different cultures and of different areas of upbringing, because there's so many differences that make us so different. So it's very important for us as a society, or very important for us as a house, to recognize that these differences are the reason we need order, as mentioned in my previous speech, that borders create order. This is how even your house has a kitchen, a lounge, and it's all divided. Imagine it if all of those like borders were taken out. Imagine if your house did not have a division between the toilet and the bedroom, and you'd be able to smell everything that you leave in the bathroom. That's the type of society that the government wants you to live in. That is the type of society that government wants you to live in. And that's when I tell you that those are the most harmful things. How is that very harmful? We tell you that it creates a lot of negative discourse. And this negative discourse comes up with chaos. And what does chaos bring? It brings about a lot of disagreement. It brings about a lot of discussing matters that people cannot deal with. So it's very important for divisions to exist, because when divisions exist, it's easier to deal with things that are within a small space rather than when something is at a bigger spectrum. So hence we still support the idea of borders, right? And then they actually tell you that there are better chances of peace because of it eliminates chances of war. I'm pretty sure you've heard about this argument from me like for a very long time, because I think it like opens a lot of doors for more violent wars to occur. Because if people like, we need to take into account that a lot of people in society are proud of their religion, which is also another form of division. And a lot of people in society are proud of their culture, which is another form of division. And also proud of their tribe, which is also another form of division. And people are also proud of their race. And all of these forms of division, imagine if you put them into one and put them into the same force, like put a Christian and a Muslim in one area and not expect them to come into fight. That's just something that is just absurd for like side government to just randomly say a borderless world is going to eliminate chances of war. Wow, I thought you guys knew better sides of the force. But anyway, moving on to something that we think, so why are these violent wars, like why is it so harmful? We think that it opens gates to the death of more people. So we think that war atrocities are something that's actually going to happen more and more often. So a lot of people are going to die. And if it so happens that we now have to have a one currency or one currency idea, we think that it's like, who is going to relieve the economy if all of the economy is down? This is where the point of competition becomes very important, because we need to continue progressing. It's very important for you adjudicators to take note of the point of progression, because that's what is necessary within society. And take note why borders actually create so much order that if they did not exist, that same image I created in your mind earlier is one that we have in a real world state. And that's very harmful in itself. We tell you that there will be a lot of more social implications, because there are different types of governments. When they come into one, it's going to be very difficult to know who is going to lead the whole nation, since it's one nation now. We know that in the animal kingdom it's the lion, but then we tell you that the snake sometimes also takes control, because it can actually bite the lion and die. So that becomes very, very problematic. So those are things that you needed to highlight. So this is why side closing opposition actually wins the whole debate in its entirety. We are the side that showed you the importance of independent governments. We are the side that showed you why separate economies are something that we need for the progression of society. We are the side that showed you that the benefits that I've stated of a border world are more than the harms that side government has actually come up with. And I've shown you how when we have it in their world, where we have borderless, there's more wars, people die, there's a lot lot more that happens within that state than the benefits that they're actually proposing. And we think that it's something that we need to highlight, something that we need to value. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this speech.
Thank you for your speech. And with that, we finish the debate. Now the youths will speak between them to make the deliberation. We invite you to be here. And thank you, everyone is of the other side of the screen, looking the debate. Thank you to the hopes, to the help, to the visualization. Sorry for my English, I always say, but but always thank you, because it makes the objective of this event, that is try to take the debates for everybody, for every people in all the world, and show the world we are a community, we are a family, we are a very beauty group in the world, speaking, making the things with the peace. Is super important for us. All the participation of every continent we are having for this event. Thank you from Africa. For Africa. Thank you for America, for Europe, for Asia, for Ocean. Thank you, everyone, to be here. Thank you for the response, and we will try to make the best for everyone and try to be an example for the people of all these countries. Thank you, speakers. Thank you, youths. We see you on the next.